Good afternoon, welcome to the UK Column Live. It's the 16th of December 2013 and it's 1 o'clock. Myself, Louise Collins, Brian Gerrish and Mike Robinson are here as always in Plymouth. And Brian, you're going to do the weather.
Well, actually, I'm going to say before that, of course, I haven't got my glasses, so if there's a little bit of stumbling during this programme, it's because I can't see. But we'll see how it goes. Well, actually, we thought, aside from telling you it's pretty grey and cold and a bit damp in Plymouth, one of the headlines that we've picked up is that the weather is to be sold. And here it is from holdthefrontpage.co.uk, and it says the Press Association is set to sell its weather forecasting business in a move which could see it gain a £125 million profit. And so what we've decided is that we'll let the UK Column Weather Service run for a few more months, and then we're probably going to sell it for about £5 million.
That's excellent.
Because our forecasting has been particularly accurate.
Always.
What is the forecast for tomorrow and the coming days? Well, either cold, slightly damp, with rain, or possibly drier with maybe the odd period of sunshine.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay.
Where are we going then?
We're going to go to Bridgend.
Oh.
What is the state of Britain? Well, this is probably telling us exactly what it is.
Yeah, the Conservative Club over in Bridgend has been holding sex parties, or swingers parties, should I say. Only the last one was only last Saturday. They've a website supporting them called Fab Swingers, and it's been promoting the parties, which takes place in a function room at the Conservative Club, where they don't actually have to even pay a fee to use that room for the little parties. They just pay a £50 deposit and in they come. Apparently in the October event, fights broke out in the car park and organisers have posted that all guests must behave and not play in the venue but go outside for special hugs. And as I say, they have free use of the function room. And here's one of the... can you put that back up, Mike?
Just on the right-hand side.
This is from the Fab Swingers website, where they've says, and we behaved just about blank, though I do think I was on the verge of being naughty a few times. Thanks all that came and made my night cracking.
Some people are going to be looking at this, aren't they, and they're thinking that it's just sort of tittle-tattle and it's a bit of nonsense reported in the Mirror. But slowly but surely, we're starting to see the true state of our politicians, and of course, it's across all three parties. So while we've got the Lib Dems who have been embroiled in how they treat women in their party, we've also seen trouble, of course, in Labour, and now here we are seeing the same sort of thing in the Tory party. In the background, we have still not seen the driving police investigation into the paedophile rings, which are now obviously connected to the British establishment and to Westminster.
Yeah, there's a spokesman called David Morris for the Conservative Club said they are not aware why these allegations have been made. The club can confirm that on evenings in October and December, the club had function room was hired for a private event. Club CCTV cameras, which cover the function room, can confirm that no inappropriate behaviour was picked up by the club's CCTV systems.
Well, we don't... OK, so we're going to wait and see what goes on. But, of course, we know that under the surface, anything now goes in Britain's mainstream parties. And if we just emphasise the state of Britain at the moment, and we say this is not accidental, it's not that ordinary people have changed, this is the result of a socio-political agenda being driven through society. We're now seeing the real effects of it. Well, of course, here is our trusted BBC. They are starting to come under the spotlight of Parliament, whatever that means, with what we've just shown. But here we are. Liars. MPs say BBC bosses lied to Parliament about obscene payoffs. There couldn't be a more serious charge, but don't expect any contrition. Well, of course, the payoffs are not the most serious charge against the BBC. The most serious charge against the BBC is to do with the paedophile activity. And these are just some of the comments about what they said. So there'd been a failure at the most senior executive levels, prevailing culture of cronyism, allowing liberal use of money. That actually means fraud. Dysfunctional relationship between the BBC executive and BBC Trust. This is lying. So we've got fraud, corruption, lying, paedophilia, And of course, at the moment, the head of the trust, the chairman of the BBC Trust, Lord Patten, is still in his job, and the main directors are. Well, if we add a bit to the picture, of course, the BBC is the same organisation that runs a charity, supposedly independent, but actually sharing BBC offices and facilities, which is saying that it is so good it's going to transform the lives of people throughout the world by using media. And what we've been picking up on, and more people are becoming interested in, is that we think the BBC is just broadcasting to Britain. But in actual fact, we've got this multi-billion-dollar BBC industry, which is now interfering in the lives of other countries, particularly unstable countries in the world. So do we think these countries really need fraud, corruption, paedophilia, dysfunctional BBC-type management coming into their countries? Well, it depends what you think the BBC is doing. But we're going to say the BBC has now become clearly a political instrument which is designed to undermine countries. And we're going to be moving in some detail on BBC media action, certainly at the start of the new year. Yeah. Just amazing stuff. Well, what do we think of this little article by the Mail? Let criminals become JPs. Well, this sounds a sensible idea, and of course it's come from the think tank Policy Exchange, but they say that basically after 5 years of committing the last offence, we should bring people in to sit in judgment of others. And the article even says, and the advice from Policy Exchange even says that basically criminals who've been involved with drugs, for example, would be particularly good to sit in complex drug-type cases. So these were some of the figures that went with it. More than half of all the JPs are over 60, and they're overwhelmingly white, middle class and old. So the underlying nudge is we need to get rid of these people because their views and values are out of sync. Here it is. Policy Exchange said former offenders would be particularly well suited to problem solving because they can understand complex issues faced by those with addictions. Presumably they didn't in the beginning, which is why they got banged up. But Policy Exchange could put this forward.
Actually, they might be more trustworthy, though, than some of the...
well,
possibly.
If we look at Policy Exchange, which of course the newspapers don't, they simply report what they're saying. UK's leading think tank, an educational charity with a mission to develop and promote new policy ideas, like putting criminals in charge of judgment of others, which deliver, here it is, better public services, a stronger society and a more dynamic economy. Well, who do they boast as speakers? We've got General Petraeus, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, General Martin Dempsey, chairman of the US Joint Chiefs of Staff, ex-Prime Minister of Spain, Prime Minister of Australia, Tony Blair, Chief of Staff to Tony Blair, Jonathan Powell, Bill Bratton, the American police chief that Cameron was desperate to lever in to our policing. And note also Richard Taylor, co-author of the book Nudge, which brings us back onto our key topic of Paul Tucker, Deputy Governor of the Bank of England. So this is not a charity running for the benefit of society. These are people with a very ingrained political agenda. And here he is, the man running the show as the chief executive, Dean Godson. Well, if you look up his background, he's just written a few things with the Daily Telegraph and a few other magazines, including The Spectator. So if you'd like to get in touch with Dean, there's his number. Can't read it because I haven't got my glasses on, 0207 340 2650. You might like to give him a call. Correct me if I've got the wrong one there. I think I've got it right.
I can't see it either.
You might like to give him a call and ask him personally why he thinks it's sensible to put criminals in charge of other people. We don't make this up.
No, we don't. We really don't.
We are just describing what is happening in Britain, but what we are desperate to get more people to understand is this nonsense and chaos is not happening by accident. This is the common purpose agenda now starting to surface. understand it and we can deal with it. Well, we thought we needed to give King Cameron a mention, and a lot of the papers have been saying that Cameron's been over there talking to the troops. He says that mission has been accomplished in Afghanistan, and of course he's glad to get all of his pictures of having Christmas dinners. But this is really what this man is doing. He's laughing and joking to their faces, but then he cuts their jobs and equipment behind their backs. And this is the reality. Some of the tragic faces of, I think it's over 446 dead British troops now.
Is this just in Afghanistan? Is that the figure just for Afghanistan?
Yes, so we've got a series of unlawful wars which are promulgated by Tony Blair, Gordon Brown and Cameron. What does he do? He sits down Christmas dinner with them to get his photo opportunity.
I wonder if you went and checked out the poppy fields, make sure production was going well.
Well, of course, Mike has covered this subject admirably, and what we've shown is that, of course, since the British and American troops have been there, the poppy production has increased dramatically. So at least the Independent here is asking some of the right questions. Tens of thousands dead, billions spent. Is the country any better off? Well, of course, the answer is not at all, because it's effectively destroyed in the same way as Iraq or Libya or anywhere else these low empathy politicians get involved with.
Yeah.
Here he is. We showed this yesterday, but I thought we'd get it up again because, of course, he's boasting that he's helping to look after the children of soldiers while they're away fighting to protect the Tory poppy crops. But the picture started to get a little more interesting when we got back on this subject, Help for Heroes. We'd pointed out that one of the trustees, here he is, Judge Blackett, was the man who sat in judgment of Sergeant Blackman, Royal Marines. We thought this was pretty hypocritical, exceptionally hypocritical, unbelievable. But this is what we didn't know when we did the report. That the Metro had, and we couldn't find this easily elsewhere, but it popped up in the Metro, that funds that had been raised from rogue banker LIBOR fines have been channeled into Help for Heroes. So a new scheme will see nearly 2.7 million given to the Help for Heroes charity, financed by the penalties that were given to traders who fixed the LIBOR rates. Do you get an uneasy feeling about this? Right. Well, it's even more than that, because, of course, it says that 9 million overall generated from LIBOR fines has been redirected into 29 military charities. But, of course, this is the punchline, isn't it? We've got money taken in fines, not from individuals. No individuals have been penalised. Nobody has gone to prison, so the corrupt, fraudulent bankers go free. And of course, they're hoping to distract the public from their actions by the fact that their money is going into what we are told is an upstanding charity. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, the amounts of money here that we're talking about relative to the amount of corruption and the profits that were generated by the LIBOR fraud, this really would be viewed by the bankers as being the cost of doing business. So you continue your corruption, and there's a charge at the end in terms of if you get caught, and that money, you know, is it right, as you say, for any charity to take that type of money? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think it is.
Well, there's quite a few people beginning to ask some questions. So we now also know that Help for Heroes is effectively acting as a hub where it's encouraging other charities to get involved, allow us to fundraise for you. So other charities are giving details of their activities through this central Help for Heroes core, which I've got to say we now know is funded partly on corrupt money from the banks. And of course, some people will be saying, does this matter if it's helping troops who've been seriously, very, very badly injured? We're going to say, yes, we think it does, because those troops have been killed and injured in fighting for a country which is boasting on a world stage of its morality and upstanding leadership. So I think if you're going to run a charity, you've got to run it clean and not tied into the very government dragging people into the corrupt wars in the first place. We'll probably get a few emails in about that, but we'll see how we go. Well, I'm going to finish my section on this subject, which is North Korea has deleted 35,000 articles from the State News Agency archive in what's described by the Mirror at least as a calculated rewriting of history. Well, who's the man behind this scam? Well, here he is, leader Kim Jong-un. And we just sort of seen this headline when we suddenly remembered a little while ago that the Mail had reported that the Tories had been deleting every pre-2010 speech and news stories from their website in an attempt to rewrite history. So who was behind this scurrilous Tory and, in fact, Labour attempt to rewrite history? Well, here he is, David Cameron. And what can we say? Well, one dictator you can see very clearly. The more dangerous one we think is Cameron because, of course, he's hiding behind his pinstripe suit in Westminster. But where does it end? The agenda is always the same. So, Mike, I think you're going to take us into what the Labour and Conservative governments have been doing with housing.
Right, well, just a quick reminder first, because last week we were discussing this report about the cost of housing in London rising by 30% by 2020. But the main point that I was making with regard to this report was the fact that they were also pointing out that rents were going to raise by a similar amount. I think they said 32% in the next 5 or 6 years. So, you know, at those kind of levels, rents, even rental property, is absolutely unaffordable by anybody on any kind of average salary. Perhaps somebody in the City of London who's making profits from LIBOR and other things can afford them, but most people can't. So why am I mentioning this? Well, it was this article here in the Mail today talking about building a home in 4 hours. And we're seeing more and more of these types of articles appearing in the press. Engineer believes his £10,500 flat pack house could solve the UK's looming housing crisis. So let's have a look at what it looks like. There it is. It's a wooden box. You know, there's some other photographs of it on the Daily Mail website. And but of course, this isn't the only example of this type of thing in the media at the moment. We also had this story in the Mail from a few weeks ago of people living in shipping containers converted into housing in London. And of course, we have the this whole. I mean, I think they've made 2 or 3 series of this Amazing Spaces program with George Clark talking about how you convert small spaces into amazing living spaces. And it just seems that there's a propaganda thread running right through the media here to get people used to the idea of making use of smaller and smaller spaces. Now, one of the comments in the Mail article about the £10,500 flat pack house is that no doubt lots will be sold, particularly in Slough. And I mean, that's referring to the fact that so many people are living in people's back gardens in wooden huts these days. It's the way that, I'll just say it again, the way that the private rental market is going, the way that the housing market is going at the moment, people are going to be forced out of living in their own homes or out of living in privately rented homes and forced into social housing. And of course, we have the situation where the waiting lists for social housing are hugely long at the moment. So there's your problem. The solution that's going to be provided to that is going to be these so-called inventive methods of building homes, flat pack houses at £10,500 or shipping containers. I think we need to start getting used to the idea that standards of living in this country are going to fall significantly in the next 10 or 15 years.
We're going to say unless we do something about it, Mike.
Indeed.
Somebody in the chat room's actually said shanty towns, Mike.
Well,
Exactly.
that's already happening in the London suburbs. And of course, what many people say is that the local councils just sat back and watched this happen. So we're just going to concentrate on the facts of what happened. We've ended up with tens of thousands of people living in appalling poverty around London because essentially our own government and the local authorities haven't taken the right action to deal with it. What they did do, of course, which we should remind people, is that they decided the best way to find out where people were living in garages was to start using spy planes And then later on, they're saying, well, actually, it might be more cost effective to use drones in order to find out where all these people are. Where does it end up? On the streets, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And figures that have been obtained from Crisis and the Joseph Rowntree Foundation show a 6% rise in people sleeping rough, and it's actually up 13% in London. Over 9% of adults apparently admit that they have been homeless at some point. According to research, caps on housing benefits have made it far more difficult for people to rent from private landlords. But I just wanted to remind people, if you can move to the next slide, Brian.
Well, I just wanted to get this man into people's minds. So here he is, done up in his dicky bow tie. This will be at one of the grand events in the city. He lives in a £1 million house or multi-million pound house. He has numerous bedrooms. So let's keep this man. Who is responsible for the people on the streets? He is Prime Minister. He has overall responsibility for what's happening in this country. But you're going to show us what's behind the scenes.
Well, then I had a look at. I just went onto Crisis website just to have a little look and see what they said. And I just, as I do, took in to see who was behind the board of trustees. The chairman is a guy called Steve Holliday, and he's chief executive of the National Grid. We got the CBE, was the director of housing growth and affordable housing in the Department for Communities and Local Government. We've got a diversity consultant in there as well, very interesting. Another energy firm boss, executive, and we've got a lady called Emma Folds, and she's marketing consultant, advising global companies in many different sectors, including pharmaceuticals, and she studied at Cambridge University. And this guy really caught my eye, Richard Mutley, I think his name. Is his name Murley? And he was one of the bosses, vice chairman of Rothschild's Bank. So these are the people who are behind Crisis Charity, the homeless. And I think all of them, maybe with just maybe a little bit of their, a bit of what they're earning, given to the homeless people, could actually probably solve the housing crisis.
You're into the heart of it here, Louise, because essentially policy is being driven through the charity sector and the non-government sector. Tony Blair called it the third society, the third way, Cameron's big society, but power is taken away from a democratic vote, and it's being driven through charities and non-government organisations and trusts. And as you've done, getting behind it, what do you find? You come back to all the hedge funds and the trusts
bankers,
and the bankers. So,
but let's just remind it, the MPs can afford to give themselves an 11% pay rise while more and more people are going homeless and hungry.
David Cameron has been very reluctant to take that money, hasn't he?
Very, yes. Painful for him. Okay, fracking. Ian Crane's show last night, which I haven't caught up on, was apparently superb, and I spoke to him briefly earlier about this, but the mainstream are picking up about health risks. In this Guardian article, they are highlighting hormone disrupting chemicals known as EDCs, which is... endocrine disrupting chemicals. Research carried out at the University of Missouri showed that water samples from drilling sites with record spillages had levels high enough to interfere with the body's responses to male hormones. So I had a look up what EDCs were, and here it is. And they're bad. They're BPA in there, and they mess around with the hormones, giving too much estrogen, ignoring the male hormone, and really not very nice. And this is what the fracking fluid is going to be bringing to this country. But I would just like to say, staying on the fracking, just before we came on air, I had a quick look on RT website. That's why we haven't got the slides. But apparently the UK government is planning to open up thousands more square miles of countryside to fracking in spite of the mass protests. Local communities will be offered £100,000 for every shale gas well where test drilling is conducted. The Conservative-led government is set to announce Tuesday new areas where test drilling will begin for shale gas. So that was literally just as we came on air.
Okay,
story came out.
Can we add to that one of the things which we think is very, very important at the moment is the behaviour of the people that are actually getting involved in, they're saying protecting our society, but the people who've actually been there on site to make a presence and their voices heard. their behaviour is absolutely key to this because they have been behaving themselves. We've had a terrible incident where the police pushed a disabled man into a ditch, which
They
was
broke his collarbone or something, was it?
No, we're about to see it. So.
okay. It's
okay.
about to come up. But of course, if we see more protests spreading across the country, our view is that the overall aim of the establishment is to try and stoke up violence.
Yeah, of course.
So if we've now got a situation where people who are prepared to protest are now learning that there's an immense power in quiet, peaceful, orderly protest, it's got a power all of its own, and this is part of the message that we need to get across. Well, okay, we've got two very, very interesting guests this afternoon. The first one will be a gentleman called Bali Maan, who's going to be talking about what's been happening in Coventry, and that'll lead us on to having a look at common law. Before we get there, we've got a short video clip.
Can I just say it's Clive's Health Revolution tonight at 9 p.m. So Clive de Carl, did I say Carl? Sorry, Clive de Carl's Health Revolution tonight, and it's the UK Column Christmas Social tomorrow at 7:30 at the George in Plimpton.
If you're local.
If you're local, yeah.
Okay, so let's have a look at fracking.
Right, well, we're just going to show a short excerpt out of last night's fracking nightmare, and it's specifically with the issue of the police treatment of people on Friday at Barton Moss.
Okay.
Now, we've also had to deal with the IGAS enforcement force known as Greater Manchester Police. Now, I have to say, I also feel sorry for the genuine police officers in the Greater Manchester Police. But amongst that force are some thugs. Last Monday, we had 5 people arrested out of the Barton Moss protection community. And we know that the police came down with a target. The inspector was caught saying, we need one more arrest. Now, that could have been targeted individuals, or it could have been a number. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt that it was just a random number of 5 arrests. Obviously, the video footage from last Monday was not conducive with the image of Greater Manchester Police. And on Wednesday, one of their chief inspectors came down to the camp and visited with a few people who were at the camp at the time to try to establish some understanding, some rules of engagement, if you like. They were looking to try to get the trucks up Barton Moss Road in 45 minutes, which is laughable. At Borkham, 45 minutes was the average delay for every single truck that went into the gate. At Barton Moss, the trucks come in convoy. So whether the convoy is half a dozen, or as it was on Friday, 14 trucks, then they're still looking to get them in 45 minutes. Well, obviously 45 minutes wasn't acceptable, and somewhere along the line, an hour and a half got mentioned. Well, on Friday, I was at Barton Moss, but I had to leave because I had an event in Sussex that night, so a 4.5-hour drive ahead of me. So I had to leave around about 11:20, which coincided with an hour and a half after the convoy started moving. Now, at that point, somebody in the Greater Manchester Police decided that it was time to change tactics. It was time to get aggressive. It was time to bring out the tactical tactical aid units. They are wrongly named. It should be tactical assault units. It's very evident that the people engaged in the tactical aid units go through the same selection process as the CRS in France. Now, having changed out the front line, the behaviour of the police was shocking. In fact, I received a communication from a Greater Manchester police officer on Friday evening telling me that they were saddened and embarrassed by what they had witnessed earlier that day. Let's take a look at the video here. What you're going to see is the live video here. Initially, if you missed it, we're going to slow it down in a second, of a disabled protector being pushed over and pushed into a ditch as the police attempt to arrest a lady who was 4 months pregnant. Now, let's take a look as this is shown in slow motion. Watch the guy with the placard. Watch what happens behind him, and you will see the head of Chris Purnell go past him as he's forcibly pushed out of the way, despite the fact that he's walking with a stick, and he's pushed into the drainage ditch alongside the road. Here he goes. There he goes. And then we see police officer X2108. There he is, the guy with the beard there, coming through and grabbing Marie, who immediately says, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant. Now look at the face on the policewoman behind her. Her lips show pure aggression. What have these police officers been briefed? Have they been told they're up against Al-Qaeda rather than peaceful protesters? Have the Greater Manchester Police not consulted the guidelines of the Crown Prosecution Service regarding arrests at peaceful protests? This is completely outrageous. Now, I'm not in any way, shape or form tarring all police officers with the behaviour of the tactical assault units. But what I saw there and what some Manchester police officers saw there is disgusting. This is not the country that I thought I lived in, but it's the country that I'm becoming aware I'm living in. We are fast approaching.
But if you're interested in seeing more of the video there on the fracking, it was quite appalling to watch what was going on. Go to the UK Column website, so it's ukcolumn.org/fracking-nightmare, and you can actually see that whole little mini documentary by Ian Crane. You can watch the whole thing. Now, somebody's come up on the chat box and actually said, what are the decent police doing about this sort of thing? And I'm going to say this is where life is becoming encouraging, because we can tell you that when people discussed with other members of the police on site of that demonstration, they were absolutely horrified at what their colleagues had done, to the extent they almost didn't know what to say. But people who were there on site, and Ian Crane has told us firsthand that it's obvious the police have been quite shocked by their colleagues. And I think these are the people who appear to be acting pretty roughly, if we say that in polite language, seem to be coming from a special division or special group called X Group. Now, we don't know whether the X is just hiding what their true identity is, but it's quite clear that there's a group of police who seem to be particularly thuggish and low empathy. So perhaps they've been set in to help stir things up. And I'll just comment on one more of the remarks that have come in on screen. And somebody is saying, well, is the fracking designed to help create tension across UK? And we're going to say to that, yes, absolutely. So we've got two issues going on. We've got the fracking for what fracking is worth, and the fact that, of course, as people become agitated and protest, this gives the state an opportunity to ramp up the tension and violence. But anyway, have a look at it live on UK Column. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Okay, well, we just put up this first little slide because it's a good introduction. So, Bally, you've come to join us. You've been very active and indeed live up in the Coventry area.
Yeah.
And we're going to be having a talk about a little bit about you, what you've been up to, and the fact that we've now got yet more groups who are beginning to investigate what's happening in the courts, common law, and what we can do about it. And there's a picture here of a recent meeting at Truth Juice Coventry.
Yes. But basically, I'll go through roughly my journey and where I've gone and how we've come to this photograph here.
And just so that people know, the www.uncommon.co.uk, that's actually the website that you're now running.
Yes, it's actually Uncommon Law, or one word, then .co.uk. But yeah, this is really the end of my journey, nearly. But originally, how it all started was I'm a plain educated guy. I've led quite a boring life, an honest life, hard-working life. And
that makes you a huge threat to the government. sorry to interject there. Yeah, okay.
I don't think I'm on any list. Well, I might be now, but certainly I wasn't before. I've lived a very plain life. My ancestry is in farming, so when my father had the opportunity to buy a farm in this country, We did. I worked very hard there, enjoyed it. And that's really how life was up until a certain moment in time. I applied for planning permissions for various different things on our farm, and everything was hunky-dory, fine. I used to do them completely myself. I thought it'd be quite fun to try, so I did a couple of planning permissions, including solar panels, farm. Right. And one day, I asked if I could have a caravan on our farm. And they said, well, what's your intention to live in there? And I said, no, actually, I've never slept a day in a caravan. I don't really intend to. However, on the farm, it's just a piece of land. So we don't have any buildings on there, and I live 12 miles away in the neighbouring county. So what I wanted to propose was to have something physically there so I could take my tools. Right. There's nothing worse than trying to plan for 2 days worth of work, and you get there and then, just that drill or that screwdriver's back. And it completely ruins the next few days. So that was the initial idea. They seemed to be okay with that when I went to the council. A couple of years later, I actually got round to it. I bought a caravan and I placed it on the land. And then that's where it all went wrong, really. We had an enforcement officer from that council, and he came, and we have a post box on the beginning of the land in case somebody wanted to inquire or have to do business with us, because we don't live on the land. It's easy to have a post box. So the gentleman had left a business card in there, an enforcement officer, so I rang him up and I said, how can I help you? And he basically alleged in a roundabout way that we lived there. But obviously, speaking to the council many times after that, how could I live there? Every time you've been there, I've never been there, and certainly we haven't even given you an invite, let alone it could be classed as trespass as well. But certainly all the communications have been to our home address, which is in the neighbouring county. So, either we live there or we don't. If we live there, then you found the post box the first time round. Why aren't you addressing it there? Lots of common sense questions which never seem to have got answered. And we went down this alley of we're going towards court action if you don't comply. And
so you're finding quite an aggressive attitude from the local authority.
I mean, when I come round and talk about it at the end, I think there's a little bit of aggression in there, and also there's misunderstandings as well. Partly my fault, and obviously partly theirs as well. But at the end, this kind of all makes sense in the end. But as part of this enforcement journey, as I call it, and in experience, I went on a lot up and down the country. I was always an avid listener of UK Column and going to various...
Thank you for that. It's always nice. Yeah, go on.
But basically, I went up and down, and I learned all the various different things, various different training courses from various different gurus.
This is to fight your own case in court, is what you're talking about. Yeah.
And basically, I learned very different ways and understanding what law is, common law is, and statutes, all these other various things. And basically, what had happened was... in one of these training courses, somebody was talking about commercial liens, and they were saying you should send it to the enforcement officer's home. So I did all the homework around that, looked at that, and then basically that's how it went completely wrong, because the enforcement officer felt threatened, and he went to his employer the next day, and they applied an injunction on me and my family.
Right.
And I think just before that happened, I remember ringing you about a year ago. And what had happened was my parents were in India at the time, in Punjab, and they were there for 6 weeks, and this was on the 3rd week. So this made no sense whatsoever. How could you invite my parents to come to a summons when they're not even in the country? I'd already told them this. And but they still were adamant, so I turned up to the court and explained on why I was there. And they said, well, which fool sent you here? And I said, well, technically that would be you, because I've already told you that my parents are not in the country.
You said this in court?
Yes.
To the judge?
Yeah. I said it to the judge, also pointed at the prosecutor. One of you has made me come here. So we went down this long, many hearings, just unbelievable amount of hearings. It was problems about jurisdiction, really. But I tried lots of different styles, and I didn't quite get the success, because this case should have been thrown out a long time ago. And the court experience was invaluable. There was lots of bads, but it was also very valuable for me to learn what works and what doesn't. And then I came across somebody who mentioned a bloke from America who has a radio show called Carl Lentz. I've kind of avoided going more abroad because I thought it was always best to stay local, which is more relevant to our culture and that we have in Britain. But I was starting to run out of various different ideas and plans on how to implement my court logic and my evidence to the case itself. And so I rang up this American on this radio show. Now, the interesting thing was I noticed that it's on every week and it's on for about 5 hours on a Saturday night. And there was lots of people who were ringing in from the week before to say that they'd had a result or they had something positive and, X, Y, and Z had happened. And I thought back and I thought, that's very interesting. Of all the various different things I'd learned, I never actually got a result.
Right.
So I thought from the outset was very unusual to me. So the following week, I stayed awake late night, midnight, I think it starts. So I dialed in and I rang in and I asked my question, because the last injunction hearing I went to, a judge had kindly led me down this path, and at the end of it gave me, I think it was 7 or 8 orders. And I was upset by this because this was where I'd done the most homework and I tried to regurgitate as much legalese as possible, so surely it should be a done deal.
Yeah, so you were self-taught, you've been doing a lot of research, and then you go into court to try it out effectively.
Yeah.
And you're saying it's not, some of it's working and some not, or
I'd say most of it doesn't work.
Right.
And I'm an educated guy in more than one field, so I felt, rather like the planning permissions, that I could do my homework, and if it was a fair and just world, but I've been watching UK Column for a while, so...
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I'll give it the benefit of doubt. And that didn't quite go according to plan. So the first thing I wanted to ask was, when I was on this American talk show, was, these orders, how do I get rid of these orders? Because they want me to contract in with one of them, and if I don't pay within, I think it was 7 days, that there'd be another case on the side of the other cases that you're not paying and you're not complying with the order. So I spoke to this American called Carl Lentz on his radio show, which people can find on. I googled TalkShoe.
Should we'll just bring this slide up briefly, Mike, just to show who we're talking about now. Here he is. So this is a fine photograph taken today, we're going to say. So here's Carl, and of course he's going to be coming on and talking in a few moments. So just so that people know what he looks like there. Yeah.
So that's Carl, and basically what I asked was, how do I get rid of these orders? Because I don't want to comply. Well, I don't mind complying. However, it's taking me down a place where I don't want to go, which would be giving full jurisdiction and everything else, from what I understood. So he explained to me everything had to be simple, and it's always pretty much 2-3 sentences. He explained to me what words were, you and I. Oh, they're the most misinterpreted words ever going. You can go on the YouTube clips and stuff and learn about that, which you'll be shocked about. But he explained to me about orders themselves. So I'd already heard from other training courses about orders, and that somebody has to sign them and print their name and date it. And there's loads of examples on various different chat rooms that the judges don't do that.
Never sign. Well, we've got documents ourselves from cases, particularly the children cases where children have been taken by the state, and you just see the most incredible things. You'll see a page covered in what appears to be spelling and mistakes and grammar mistakes, but it's absolutely not. And documents, court orders, as you say, not signed. Some of them are not stamped either.
All over the place. I mean, you could say it was so commonplace that very quickly I realised that there's a reason for this. You can't make that many mistakes. He explained to me in simple terms the reasoning why and why they wouldn't order it. Because, for example, he explained to me that only a man can make an order to another man, which I thought, okay, that's very simple, that makes sense. So when you say a judge is going to make an order, a judge is a fiction. How can a piece of paper make anybody do anything? Well, it can't, because it's a piece of paper. That's two-dimensional. You're three-dimensional. So there's very simple kind of things like that. So, I mean, his style itself, he'll explain to himself, but it's very passive compliance. So it's very difficult to get controversy from that, which lawyers love. Basically, I just wrote to the court to say, you know, this piece of paper you've given me looks like an order, but it just doesn't quite look like an order. It's almost like an order. The only thing is if a man is the only one who can give another man an order, would you mind sending it back to me, signed and dated, and I'll be happy to carry out your order. And that was it. That was the last I ever heard of the orders.
So what's happened with your case then that you've gone through? Because it did end up with your parents being brought into court and...
Yeah, I mean, all the stressful experience that goes with that. But basically, I rang up the following week, just like all his other radio listeners, and I said, oh, that was brilliant, that was excellent. Now I've got the case coming later on in the year, which was just last Friday, actually. And basically what I asked was, do you mind if I pay for your ticket, that you come here, you teach me all this stuff, and then I get to practice it actually in the case trial itself.
Right.
And he said after a week or two, because he has a farm of his own, and people who have farms will know it's not always that practical just to get up and leave.
Yeah.
And to ring him back in a couple of weeks. So I did. We booked his ticket, got him here, and I learnt with him for about 2-3 weeks. And then we got to practice it in the actual court itself. Now, there was some ups and downs in that. So the plus side of all this entire journey was he's opened up a website here, which was the uncommon with a K, law.co.uk. So the plus side was around about, and just before Carl had come, just like you suggested, we got people together with lots of different problems, and we conversed and we swapped ideas. And that's really what the first picture was from. That was just, I think, a few guys from UCT. And
you also had Roger Hayes from British Constitution Group was there as well.
Not for that particular one. We're going to go meeting him tomorrow. I think the Americans know more of Roger more than most other names actually in the UK. And hopefully the plug for UK column will be heard a lot more abroad as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, all this has had a positive outcome. We've mixed in with a lot of people where we wouldn't ordinarily have thought to speak to different people, and promoted lots of different things, what works, what doesn't. I mean,
so these are all ordinary. You're talking about ordinary people coming together now to
very ordinary, very, very ordinary,
to discuss what's going on in the courts and how they can challenge what they see as unlawful actions by the establishment, the courts themselves.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things which I did was originally I went around to ask my local community, for instance, to do a bit of investigation on what the council does and how they do this enforcement action and who these people are. And very quickly you pick up something sinister, lots and lots of bad stories, never ever a good story. And to move forward again back to Carl, when he came here and taught me lots of these things. I mean, he's actually doing a law dictionary, which the law dictionary is the key to his success, I think, because he's using words which, like I say, is you, I, really basic words that actually explain more on what's actually going on. Because when I'd gone through each hearing, I'd realised, that didn't quite go according to plan. There's something I'm missing. And what it was actually the words that I was using, what I thought the words were, and what I thought the legalese words were, but sometimes the meaning was actually completely different.
Yeah. So can I just, if I may, just sort of interject here and say that, of course, many years ago, time's moving on pretty quickly, it was John Harris that we first became aware of, who started to talk about this business of the language in the courts and legalese. And actually, John gave one of his first talks not far from here with a bit of assistance from the UK column. And I've watched that expand. And of course, not everything that we believed or John was looking at the time was correct, but people have kept digging. And it's now clear that we're beginning to understand more and more about what's really going on in the legal system. So that's the work has been good. I'll just ask you if I may, because you're a member of the Sikh community.
Yeah.
You're up there in Coventry. What's the understanding amongst the Sikh community in Britain? Do they see something's gone wrong in this country? or-
Absolutely. Although I've tried to interject from my angle, which is, I suppose it's more kind of planning issues, but I do go to the Gurdwara every so often. Obviously, I don't have a turban, so I'm not baptised as a Sikh. But I believe in my family are Sikh, so we go there. And I did notice when I went there quite a few times that the community themselves have evolved. And also there's people doing meetings which are highlighting grooming and various other things that their children should be wary of, but also they're also making these accessible and meetings for parents as well as the children.
Right.
Of people of different languages.
So
as
there's
well.
enough concern at the moment that the Sikh
Absolutely.
community is, in a very simple way, starting to say we need to talk about what's happening.
Yep. I mean, they do it in their own format, and they do it in English and Punjabi. But certainly, these Gurdwaras, they're absolutely packed. And
Right.
they're not just there to pray. These are like an afternoon or an evening
Right.
class where people have actually come to actually understand what's going on, what to be looking out for. And I mean, it's a good thing. It's never a bad thing. And going back to our experience, now that our case is actually finished, Carl explained lots of different things. I mean, the obvious one, which I learned before, was about administrative courts. All the courts that I know of are actually administrative, which I knew already. But there was a huge thing which he explained about, which I'm sure you'll explain. It's called the Queen's Bench. I'd heard about it, but I didn't actually know what it was. But when I realised it was actually the People's Court, that's when things changed quite a lot. But in our case, luckily I took Carl with me, and the judge was very careful about his words when Carl was passing notes to me to correct him with his words. So the judge very quickly realised that whoever that guy is behind me
Knows what
he
he's
knows
doing.
what he's doing.
Yeah.
And very, very quickly, from previous painful experiences, it very, very quickly turned around. It was a culmination of understanding what orders are, and also understanding what a creator is, which I think Carl will go on to talk about, and the words itself. And from that, and what common law being invoked. So either this case could either be lost today, it doesn't matter, because we've gone to Queen's Bench anyway.
Right. So the end result of your case, and then I think we better get Carl in. Yeah.
So basically, normally at the end of the case, you're either guilty, not guilty, or case is dismissed. Something like that. And in one of his YouTube clips, and he explained to me as well, there's something extra called discharge. So rather like an army, you can say dismissed and they'll be back in the morning to carry out their duties. But a discharge is that entire case, like a battery, is finished, and you can basically come back to prosecute.
Right.
Now, I was prepared to jump in if he did say dismissed, to say, well, actually, no, that's discharged. Can I have a discharge, please? But the surprising thing was the judge himself conducted himself in an amazing way. He was almost like my best friend, definitely on my Christmas card list. And basically, at the end, which I've never heard of before, he actually said the case is discharged.
Discharged, right.
Basically, go after this enforcement officer because, he clearly didn't like him.
Okay, well, we're going to have to stop there
Yeah.
because we've got a certain restriction on time this afternoon. But I'm going to say, Bally, thank you very much for
Thank you for having me.
coming. As usual with the UK column, there wasn't a huge amount of planning went in today, but it's been extraordinary how all the information's come together. And what we'll say is we'd love to have you back with us to talk more, not only about what you're learning, but what's going on up, I'm allowed to say up in the Midlands, okay, Coventry area. But we better get Carl in and see what he's got to say for himself. Okay, so thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks.
Well, okay, we're a couple of minutes while we do a little bit of a turnaround in the studio, and I will then be joined by Carl Lentz. Stay with us. Hello, welcome back. And of course, we gave you a sneak preview of one of the slides there, but I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by Carl Lentz. Welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for coming. And what we just said is amazing that we hadn't planned to do this before Christmas, but we got a phone call from Bally saying that you were in the country, we should get you down and do an interview. And that's what's happened.
Yeah.
So if I just drive things a little bit in the beginning, just tell us a bit about yourself. Where are you from in the States?
Well, I'm originally from New York City, and once our family had enough money, they went and bought farmland out on Long Island, and we raised basically on a chicken farm. And then in the summertime, we'd go back in New York City, so I got lucky. I was able to understand city life with relatives in the city, and I understood the farm life out in the country. So I was lucky. I got to intermingle with both worlds. So, but like I said, just like any other man or woman, you start out very early in life learning law. You know what's proper and just and what's wrong at a very early age. So the reason why I've really had to delve into this to the level I have is because I had a son who was born in 2001, and he was born with Downs. So what the government tried to do, they tried to make all kinds of proposals to us of benefits and Medicaid and Social Security, and I wished of nothing of the government, because when you receive a benefit, obviously there's going to be some sort of a latch attached to it. They're going to want to inspect the home, inspect the child. It's like, look, we've got this covered. We have a farm in Virginia. We have our families lived for thousands of years without any government intervention. So can you just leave us alone? And for some reason, they just kept saying, you need to sign Medicaid, Social Security cards. You got to, be able to find funding for him for the rest of his life. I said, we've got that covered. We don't require any benefits from the government. So what was funny is they kept trying to say, well, if you don't sign with us, you're not going to have your child discharged to you from the hospital. I said, oh, really? I said, you realize that is my property in that other room that you're talking about? And the two women from Social Services, CPS, said, oh, you just called your child property. I said, well, that's my property. And don't worry if I call them child or not, that's my property. And like, oh, I can't believe you just said that. So then I looked down to the end of the table, and the mother was down there. I said, hey, yo, are you my property? And she said, absolutely. I said, why is that? She said, because you're mine. I said, that's right. I said, so what is property? Property is that which is proper to man, that which is exclusive to all others within the society, which includes all the products and services he creates by laboring his body. So I basically just said to the lady, because we're exclusive to each other within this society. We have a verbal agreement, and by our acts, we could prove that she's exclusive to me, and I have the right to enjoy and use her, and I'm exclusive to her. I said, we don't need a marriage contract. We don't need a certificate from the state to prove that we are each other's property, that we believe that we are exclusive to all others within a society to use and enjoy as we wish, without any government intervention. So these poor women are like, but you used the word property. I said, that's right, because the legal society can't use the word property, because the number one function from all time since time began with governments are created to protect and secure property. That's all they have. That's their mission statement, is to secure and protect the property of man. That's what they exist for. That's why we created them. And man is the creator of the governments. There are public servants. We are the public. They serve us. So we are supposed to go to the government when we require something. They are never allowed to knock on our door and say, hey, I got a sale for you today. I got a benefit. Don't you want it? Look, when I want you, I will come seek you out. Do not bother me. Don't interfere with my life. When I've ran out of every other course of action, like go to my family, go to my parish, go to my community, go to my state, my county, then maybe I'll go to, like, say, the federal government for help. But until then, I don't require any help, and please just let me alone.
So what stage was this when you were using this expression to the social services, when you were saying...
A few days after he was born.
Right.
So we just basically asked the women, I said, have me and my wife done anything wrong to this newborn? No, we're not accusing you of doing anything wrong. I said, then we don't require anything of your benefit from the government. Thank you, but no thank you anyway. And they said, well, if you don't sign this piece of paper, you'll never see him again. I said, oh, is that a threat? And they said, we do this every day, Mr. Lentz. And I said, well, you picked on the wrong guy, because I know that's my property, and the government only exists to protect the property of man. So you're going to have a run-in with me. I said, we're going to have fun. So for 6 years, they held the child. No charges ever against us, laid against us. And when we finally got a copy of the contract, 6 years later, It's what you folks have over here in Britain too. You folks usually have something called safety plans, and all these women who are having their children taken away, unless they've been criminally convicted of, like, say, chopping the kid's arm off or something like that, and they went to prison for something, they enter into voluntary agreement plans that say they'll make sure the house is clean, they'll make sure they get off of drugs, they'll make sure whatever. It's also a voluntary agreement that these folks make. Well, these people were so lazy that when my child was born, they didn't bother to fake a safety plan. They didn't bother to fake a contract. So what they did is they put an 80-year-old lady on here with a 40-something-year-old uncle taking care of a 3-year-old girl in an apartment somewhere. So this contract has nothing to do with me, my wife, or a newborn Downs baby in a hospital. That's how lazy they were. So obviously I'm moving my suit against them for damages for interfering with my child for all those years. I got the child's back living on my mom's farm in Virginia, where we originally wanted to bring them 12 years ago. But this is what I tell people all the time. Inside of their own code system, they understand the capacity of a man. Man has the capacity to wish. So you say, oh, Carl, that's such a cute word, wish. Well, you know what? Within their own code, it just says voluntary placements. It says the department has no authority under a voluntary agreement to hold a child against the parent's wishes. Very simple. All you have to do is go back to the county or whoever has it and say, I wish for the child to be returned. If you voluntarily sign an agreement, I don't care if you didn't live up to any of the terms and conditions with the contract. Anytime you wish for your property to be restored, restoration of property, not restored. Restored is the past.
Carl, can I say at this stage, because I've been learning as this knowledge has been unfolding, but of course you're highly experienced in the system and the simple words. But what we know people can't do is sort of, unless they actually know what they're doing with those words and phrases, they can't simply go in and play a game unless they've been trained in the game.
Right, and I thought it was extremely simple, the game, but I didn't realize, since my mom worked for the federal government since 1972 as an IRS tax auditor, I've been conditioned and trained in this game my whole life because my mom prepared cases against folks for failing to pay taxes, so she was always hitting us at home with stuff that they use in court all the time, so it became second nature to me. Watching Bali go into court, I didn't realize how difficult it was. So we were passing these notes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and finally the magistrate said, "Sir, who are you?" I said, "I'm Carl Lentz from the United States of America." He said, "Yes, would you like to sit next to your friend, and would you like to help him out?" I said, "Yes, I'm his next friend." And in the United States, it's somebody who helps somebody who's incompetent is their next friend. And here it's called a McKinsey friend.
Yes.
So I said, lovely, lovely. So every time the judge was saying something wrong, I'd tell Bali, I'd write a little note saying, that's not proper. Like when the magistrate asked Bali, do you want me to call your witness? And Bali was going to say yes. And I said, no, I require of you to place my witness on the stand. Because a man wants from nothing from any other man. God provides all that a man could want. You don't want anything from that man in a black robe because he could deny you. He could say, no, it's not going to happen then. No, I require of you. Because require means by authority and by right. And only man has rights because the government says duties, obligations, and responsibilities according to the Constitution, Charter, or contracts. Men are not bound by paper. We do as we wish. So what I said to Bali, you require, it means and by right. States and governments have authority, but they have no rights. Okay? So the judge was realizing, this is what I was saying to you earlier, it's called a Sibboleth. It's like Sibboleth. They still do that like in Mecca when you want to go see the holy city and you want to go around, it's around a rock. They'll give you a question when you approach the gate. And if you don't get it right, well, ancient times, you were executed. But I don't know if they still do it. But what it is there's certain key words that these people are listening for. And only that within that legal society, or that Muslim society, or that Hebrew society, they know when you're entering their temple, they're going to give you a question. And if you're saying it properly, the judge is trained to pick up that word and says, he knows the game. He knows the words. This is going to be fun. So in the United States, I basically gave 10 words out there. And there's some man going to the courts now. He's 35 years old. He's unemployed. Nice man named Dennis in Eaton, Pennsylvania. Sorry, I don't remember your last name. But he called up my show one day. He said, this has been a lot of fun sitting in court because those 10 words keep coming up. Like unbelievably how many times those simple words come up. And if you understand like the difference between saying you're in person or if you're a man, a person is a man, but he has always a duty and responsibility to that society when he's in person. but I just appear in court as a man, and I'm only obligated to harm that I've caused any harm or wrong to another man. I'm not obligated to your legal society. I'm sorry you believe what I did was wrong, but technically, I'm not part of your society, so how can I be held liable if I don't know the rules of your society? You gotta, leave me alone, because I'm not liable.
For somebody who's not familiar with what you're talking about at the moment, and you correct me, but we are dealing with the fact that there is a separate system running inside the courts. Mm-hmm. It's a procedural system, but most importantly, it has its own language.
Absolutely.
And if you become involved in that language, you become involved in the procedure.
You're in grave peril. You're in grave peril. The only thing I always tell people, like every one of these seminars I've done in this nation, the very first thing I said to these folks, I said, you do know what Queen's Bench is. And they all look at me, as like all these scholars and gurus that I've been talking to, because the people who've listened to me, who come to my shows, are really like hardcore into this. I said, you folks don't know how to access Queen's Bench. You don't understand the concept of Queen's Bench. I said, have you ever watched the Judge Judy show? It's like, there's somebody who sits up there, or a jury, 2 men come in, 1 man leaves. It's very simple. There's no procedure. When you are the moving party or the claimant, you call the rules of the court. You invoke your customs and jurisdiction. You invoked how the court's going to move. If the other side doesn't like it, they can challenge and that's when you have preliminary hearings or precipice days, when you guys argue back and forth the merits of your case with the other party. But obviously you always try to settle the matter on a private side before it gets into an open court. So this is what I did very simple with Bali, is I invoked the Queen's Bench. So all I did with Bali's case was I just said, I, Rashim Man, require of you to place your case before Queen's Bench. The next part of the notice was very simple. It's just, once we get before Queen's Bench, plaintiff must press the record. And as soon as they got that little notice, Bali and them, they were ready to fight. The magistrate was like, hold off, I got this. This was a different hearing. This wasn't the Friday one. This was like 2 Mondays ago. He said to the barrister, he said, you do know code enforcement officers and all that paperwork has no standing in Queen's Bench. It's all hearsay. You're not going to be able to present that in Queen's Bench. He says, you know that, right? He says, we'll figure out how to get it in. I said, and then the magistrate was like, this is a waste of time. You better go out in the hallway and figure it out with these people, because you have no standing in Queen's Bench. So that's what you're saying. There's a parallel system running in this country. My stuff will not work in France. It only works in the UK, and Bali did say that one time to the judge.
Because this is dealing with a base of common law.
Common law. Yeah. And the whole world, it's like some people really like that Star Trek belief, one world government order, intergalactical, planetary, the code is the same universally, but I actually enjoy going to different cultures and different countries and not seeing McDonald's on every street corner. I like diversity. I really enjoy it. I don't want a homogenous world. I really enjoy seeing different cultures and what worked for them for the last 10,000 years and what doesn't work for them, and try to see if we could grab something from them. But if they're just going to be one corporate universal code world, it's going to be almost like robotic.
We're just digressing a little bit, but you're suggesting that we are heading towards a sort of unified judicial system for the world?
It will. Until, like I said, unless... Thank God for the internet, because I'm able to come here, and Bali wouldn't have known. And I just woke up so many people here in the UK. It's unbelievable. So we actually physically went to Queen's Bench, which was a lot of fun. Bali likes doing the tourist thing, so we actually got to Queen's Bench late. So they said it's closed. The court's closed at 4:30. I said, oh, really? You believe it's closed at 4:30? I said to the security guard. He said, yes. I said, no. If the Queen was here, does the Queen not have free access to Queen's Bench? He said, yes. So is it not true that the Queen and the people also have access to Queen's Bench? Yes. So if it's free for her, it's free for me as well, right? And he's like, I never heard of such a thing. I said, where's your off-duty judge? After hours? He says, I never heard of such a thing. I said, you better call up security, the head security guy. And then he tried to give me razzle-dazzle, said, come back at 10 o'clock. I said, oh, really? Where is your duty judge? Like we have them in the United States, where two of my friends are judges, and they ask me to be a hearing officer at times. So I said, where's your duty judge? So like I said, they don't make it easy for you folks to know the rules. The rules are very simple. But yes, we got in after hours. Yes, we filed our case probably 6, 7 o'clock at night. And the security guard, when we left, he says, that's unheard of. I've never seen any. We actually went to London to the Court of Justice, whatever they call them, justice courts. And we actually filed a claim after 4:30. So people like you folks have to understand, the courts are open 24/7, 365. And it was funny, I actually took a picture of it where it said, if any person wishes to access Queen's Bench after hours, call the duty judge and the courtrooms will be open. So, instead of me explaining a long thing, what I did...
Simply by knowing what the real rules
Yeah.
for the Queen's Bench were, you were able to get them
Because
to
we're no
take
different.
paperwork. Otherwise, we use the expression fob off. You get the fob off, we close at
That's
4:30.
silly. That's
You
my
gotta come
building.
back. Yeah.
That's the public's building. Is this not a public building?
Right.
Am I not the public? Is this
Yeah.
Queen's Bench? Is not... Open the door. I'm coming in.
Yeah.
The security guards are like, this is unbelievable. You can't come in. Who do you think you are? Team America. We're coming in. We're going to open up this gate. I'm telling you, we're going to tell you the rules. So they were like, yes, there is a duty judge, and yes, the duty judge said, fine. Just write down why you couldn't come here at 4:30. Explain a little reason why you were late. And I'll make sure the paperwork goes through, and I'll send you a copy tomorrow. I said, lovely. And Polly was like, I would have never done that without somebody like you. I said, yeah, because in America, we really don't take no for an answer very well. We usually, this country's very orderly. You guys are beyond orderly, and America, yeah, it's a free-for-all compared to what you guys got. You guys are very, it's sweet. I mean, it's lovely, but boy.
We queue, basically.
You guys
We
are
stand
lovely.
in line.
Yeah,
we stand
yeah,
in line.
you
I
guys
think
are
that's the
lovely.
right expression.
But so like I said, if you want to talk a little bit about that, the PowerPoint slides we got, that'd be great. Because,
Okay, right. We're going to say that all of this has been put together very quickly this
Oh, yeah.
morning, so we may have a few out of sequence, but let's see how we go. So this is the first one we had to call up. So if you're happy with that,
All right, that's fine.
tell us what we got here.
Well, I always do things a little odd and a little different. It's called like Uncommon Law. That's the website. Broadmind.org. Sorry about that's the name of my website.
Yeah.
And everybody in my family spelt their name with the letter K instead of letter C's. So there was just a twist, and I got fortunate that I came to the UK, and it fits in perfect with your guys' UK. I got lucky. But I usually do like a word of the day, and this was like the word of the day, and I explained to folks capitalization.
Are you saying this is one of the slides that you've used
Change.
in the talks in UK?
Oh, yeah. Talks everywhere. I wrote a dictionary. So, like I said, I realized the dictionary got out of hand. It's like 3,477 words, and I have a WAV file for every single word so you folks know how to pronounce it. But I realized, you know what, there's only basically maybe 20 to 50 words that you ever really need to know to evoke your own court. It isn't very complicated. You don't have to go to law school for this. It's very simple. And like I said, when I do it, like I did when I make claims to get property restored, the restoration of property for parents getting their children back, it's always 2-3 sentences tops.
Right.
There's no reason to and I make it in 22 font, so it looks like I'm putting something into the court. And it's like, that's it? That's it. And it's funny, the state attorney, New Mexico did that one time in court, and he said, let me read what their claim is. Quote, the lady's name is to require the immediate restoration of property, see Exhibit A, because they have no right to know what my child's name is. I just give them a picture. I said, attach a picture, Exhibit A. Unless the child is restored, I'm going to charge the unlawful holder of this child $1 for every second the child is held in, unlawful naked possession, one naked possession. So the judge, so he read it out to the court, and luckily the state prosecutor said, that's her whole defense. That's her whole answer to the court. And the judge just said to her, so you don't want to work with us, you don't do AA classes, you don't want to do anger management, you still know you have criminal charges of fighting the police, you don't want to do what's in the best interest of your child. She says, I require the immediate restoration of property. And that's all she said. And he said to the prosecutor, that's on my show, it's a 40-minute clip that the husband calls up and tells what happened. And the judge looks over and says, restore her property. And the other side, the CPS and everybody said, well, she hasn't done anything. He says, the law, restore her property. And then they said the child ran over and was done. And the child's name was Serenity. And Serenity was restored. And it's that simple. A lady in Canada was on my show last week, and there was a Downing Thomas, guest 11 and guest 31 was downing me. So I said, oh, really? Oh, wait a second, I see the folks from Canada listening. So I put them on. I said, and then the kids came on. I said, oh, thank you, Uncle Carl, for helping me get home. Yeah, we really love being home. Thanks for helping my mommy. Right. So it works. Okay, two things here, Carl. One is we'll bring that slide back up so that you can describe what people are seeing, because the print's very small. Just take us through why you wanted to get this information on screen. Well, the big thing is, like I said, if you go further onto the slides, I'm going to show you the hierarchy of how they work. And what you look at is everybody knows who watches these kind of shows like a hierarchy, like a pyramid, like a capstone. So like as say a creator, nobody knows what the creator truly is. I can't tell you what your creator is. You can't tell me what I believe the creator is. So, or supreme being or God. You have your own beliefs, I have my own beliefs. No people on planet Earth. So that's why it's always basically left empty, and you got like the I, the one. So when folks don't understand this capitalization rule is extremely important. When you write, like when I used to see how I write is I, a man, I always start with lowercase I, because I don't decapitate myself. And it goes back to old Roman customs and traditions, that if you diminish the capacity of the man by how you stylize the name. So when they're reading the paper, they see I, a man, in lowercase, they're like, okay, I, the capstone, I, the one, okay, I, a man, by nature, I am a man. It's like, okay. And then the characteristics of the man, I am known as Carl Lentz. It's like, okay. And that's basically as far as you want to go with these people. You just basically want to say, I, a man, or you can give your name. Sometimes it's best just to stop as a man. That way they know that they're interacting with a man, and the man is the one who created the governments, man creates the courts, man created the judges. No judge ever created a man.
Right.
So that's on the next one you're going to see.
Okay, what I'd just like to, really ask you at this point is, of course, this, if we're talking about children being taken away, we're talking about an incredibly emotive subject to parents.
Right.
And I've been into court, I don't know, about 10 times with into the family court, and I've seen everything. I've seen the lies, I've seen the perjury, all the rest of it. How do you, what we're not offering in this interview is a magic wand, because people have got to know their stuff. But the question is, how do you deal when a judge is actually the judge themselves is corrupt? Well, sorry, that Michael pick up your pen.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
The big thing is like, let me tell a lady from Canada's story. She was thrown out of court. The first, she had 4 children, and they had gun and drug charges on them. So obviously that's pretty powerful stuff to be charged with, to have children in the house and have that kind of stuff. And so what happened was she tried to put in all this free man stuff, and it went. They got thrown out of the courtroom. About 4 or 5 months later, I just happened to start up my radio show, and I said, the first mom and dad who calls up needs their kids back, I'll get them back for them. So he just happened to ring. So he started going on and on about free man stuff. I said, wow, do you have a wife or a woman here in the house? And I said, yes. I said, do you understand any of the stuff you're saying? She's not really. I said, this is all your fault. Yes, because you listen to this guy with this crazy stuff. She's like, yes, good, I could work with you. So I said, by the time we get on the next show, I said, we'll have the results for her. So this was a massive gamble for me. So it worked out great, as I really worked hard with this lady, and I made a very simple four-sentence thing. I require the restoration of property. So as soon as she turned that one little piece of paper into the clerk of the court, who then turned it to the court clerk, which is different, court clerk ran and got the head judge. The head judge all of a sudden invited these people into his chambers. Said, why did you use this word property? Lincoln freed the slaves. When it had to do with Canadians, I don't know. Shouldn't we call them children? That's right. That way they have jurisdiction and control over children, but they have no jurisdiction and control over property. Right.
Now, this I brought up in a little bit of chat last night with Barley, because we've had one of the family division judges saying, Colville, I think his name is, saying where children are concerned, you have no rights.
That's right. He's correct. Where your property is concerned, you have rights, because property is inherent within you. Property, like I said, that's why I say to property all the time. That which is proper and exclusive to all others within a society. So nobody has, you're saying, that child is my property. He's exclusive to me, bared by the fruits of my labor. He's exclusive for me to use and enjoy. Property, not child. Property. See, these are Sibboleth words. Right. They're listening.
So the judge, that American judge, was
Canadian.
New Brunswick.
Yeah, okay. This was Queen's Bench in Canada. So see, this works in Canada as well.
He was trying to trick the family back into
under his jurisdiction and control. Right. Absolutely. She got home and she says, "Oh, we had a wonderful visit with the judge. Oh my God, all this worked out great. Da 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 da. We never been treated so great in court. Da 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 da. And we got trial coming up on Friday. Da da da. Monday." And he said, all the judge asks us to do is change the word property to child. I said, get back up there and change it back. Lady, do exactly what I tell you to do. Not. I said, I told you long ago, if you don't do exactly what I tell you to do, you'll never see your children again, I guarantee it. She's like, yeah, I know. They already got them set up for foster care. And There was 4 children scattered all over New Brunswick, all over the province. So they didn't even have visits with their kids in 4 or 5 months. So it was really sick what they did to these people. And but like I said, go back. And she was upset. She was like, oh, I got to go all the way back. It costs so much money and diesel. I said, lady, do it, but don't ever call me again. And she was like, fine, fine. So she went up there and she changed it back to property. So when the trial hit on Monday, there were 20 affidavits in the case file. They had to go over 20 witnesses' statements in court. It was incredible. Each kid had a guardian ad litem. Each child had a doctor. And they were saying how horrible the kids were, da-da-da-da-da. She, after all those 20 witnesses, the husband went. And even he admits on the show he tried his crazy free man stuff for an hour and a half, and he's like, it went nowhere. She got on the witness stand, and I said to her, I said, can you point out the woman who took your property? I said, can you do this? And she said, yes. I said, good. I said, so then when you see the woman, so when you get to stand, say, that woman robbed me of my property. I demand of you the immediate restoration of property. And the judge said to her, well, you haven't even got a copy of the case file. Don't get the case file. Their facts, their evidence means nothing. Whatever somebody else wants to believe, let them believe whatever they want to believe. I'm never going to challenge your facts. I'm never going to challenge your evidence. That's what you believe. You can't convince me there isn't a God or is a God. That's your beliefs. I don't care what your facts are. I don't care what your evidence is. Don't worry about mine. You present your case to the jury, and they'll determine the merits of your case. And then I'll get a chance, and I'll determine the merits of my case. So stop worrying about what their case file says. You present your case, and that's all that matters. You try on your suit before the jury, and they'll determine whether it has merit. Don't worry what the other side's doing. So what happened was the lady said, she robbed me of my property. I demand of you immediate restoration of property. And the judge was like, well, he didn't get the case file, haven't got a lawyer, da-da-da-da-da, all this other stuff. You don't even do the best interest of the child's sake. She said, why won't you work with us? And she said, why would I want to work with a robber? Why do I care why they rob me? I require the restoration of property. And the judge went, the court will be in recess. And she said they sat in a lobby. So then what was funny is at 5 o'clock they were told to go home. This is all on the show. The lady said it right on the show.
If I just, very quickly, if I just bring this one up, it'll be one of these shows, will it?
No, it's one of the earlier shows. This man just has he doesn't have the April and May shows
right.
yet. These are snippets. These are legal advice. This is the shows that I give people.
Right, just so that we're helping people to come into your information, that these are just a tiny selection of are they video or they're video clips on their YouTube clips?
What it is, somebody took part of my radio shows apart, and I try to say to people, this is not legal advice. This is law. This is common law. Like, this stuff won't hold up in any code world, but it will hold up in a common law land, which we are a part of, fortunately. That's why I'm not I'll never go over to France, because this won't work over there. But while we still have access to the common law and Queen's Bench, use it. And no matter how many people I talked to, they said, we don't know Queen's Bench. I said, a simple Judge Judy show. Judge, 2 man, 1 in, 1 out. Boom, that's it.
Right.
This isn't rocket science.
Okay, Carl, give me an answer to this question of what happens if... I do not believe all the judges in Britain are bad. I do not believe they're all corrupt. I think a lot of them have turned a blind eye to corrupt practices because they wanted to protect their income or their pensions. But I do know that there are some judges which are clearly utterly corrupt.
Okay.
How do we deal with them?
Okay, let me just finish what happened with Jesse at Jacinth.
Right.
What happened was the judge said recess until tomorrow morning. When Jesse walked in, and her husband walked into the Queen's Bench the next day, into their court up there in New Brunswick, the Crown barrister walked across the lobby and said, who wrote this? Just the 2 sentences, who wrote this? And she said, well, I did. He said, no, are you a lawyer? No. Who wrote this then? She said, I did. And he said, no, right, do you want to come work for us? And she's like, no, why? She said, because we're scared poopless. I can't use the word that the Crown used, but that's what he said. We are poopless. Whoever wrote this knows what he's doing. Who did this? They said to her, when do you want your property restored? And she said, immediately. He said, well, they're all over the province. Can you give us until Friday? And she said, okay, that'll be fine. So they understand when you make a 2-sentence claim, it's over. It's done. There's nothing they can do. No matter how corrupt the system is, no matter what, these people are still duty-bound and honor-bound. When you say certain shibboleth words, certain key words, they know there's nothing. They all know all their society members are watching.
Right, I'm just going to push you on this one because I've struggled with some of this myself. We're saying we've got people that when the courts are running properly, the system they're using is by nature deceitful, in that we don't understand what it's about.
So why aren't you in Queen's Bench?
Right. But we can also say that the people running that deceitful system have a code of honour amongst themselves.
Of course.
And would I then be right in saying that if they were to start making their own, if a judge was to start making their own decision, which is counter to their own code of conduct, their system would start to break down?
No. The big thing is that you folks, you have to understand that the man in the black robe does not create the orders. The claimant creates the order. So when you make a claim, when you are going into their administrative court, or if I went into your court, I'd be coming into your case. You define me, and you tell me what rules I have to abide by. Now, if I don't want to abide by those rules, or I say that's unfair and unjust, I'm going to move my claim. So poor Bali, when his family was doing this for a year and a half, 2 years before they met me, they were not allowed to present evidence, facts, nothing, They thought they had a lovely case, and they were saying, oh, the judges are corrupt and evil, I said, Bali, you have to move your case. If they have their case, you have no rights. You think they're going to let you win in their case? No, they're going to make it inherent that there's no way in the world that you could possibly win in their case. You have to move your own case. So when you move a case in Queen's Bench, they can't follow. Unfortunately, here in a common law land, Queen's Bench rules supreme. So they have to basically leave their case at the door and come after you in Queen's Bench as man on man. Not public servant against man, man on man. Not person on person, because a person is a man who has a duty and obligation to a society. And he's saying, I'm not a person, I am a man. I have the right to access Queen's Bench. You have to pursue me now, chase me, prosecute me now into the Queen's Bench. And once we get there, you have to utter your proof, your claim in open court. You have to press the record. And they know they can't do that.
Right.
And that's what the magistrate said. It's done. It's that simple. It's a trump card. You guys are done. And the common law land is so simple, it's scary.
Okay, let me ask you another question then. When you go into the Queen's Bench, you're only producing or presenting your case in front of judges?
No, juries. You go under Blackstone's Commentary, Volume 3, Section 378. The jury has, at their own peril and hazard, the right to interpret the law as well as the facts. That's Section 378, Blackstone's Commentary, Volume 3.
Okay, so are you automatically getting a jury when you go into the Queen's Bench?
Because I could get things done in front of me, like I did with Bally the other day. We did not record. We came in as defendants in an administrative court, and certain Sibboleth words I still shot out at the judge, and the judge realized this is a man. He's evoking the common law. I have to respect this man. This is the supreme law of this land, not the silly code stuff. A man is now present, and I have to respect the fact that the man is present, and this man will prevail.
Right.
Flip the court just like that.
Right.
It's a way to flip it, really easy. And he could have flipped it back by saying certain things wrong. Thank goodness I was behind him like a ventriloquist. Say, don't say this, don't say that.
Yeah.
Or he would have lost. Like as soon as the judge said, do you want me to call the witness? Yeah, he was going to say yes. No. I require of you to call the witness.
Yeah.
So there's a difference because I require of you, use a plural. I don't know if anybody really realized
so
that.
This is an absolutely key point, that because we have also, and we've had calls from people who've tried to take a little bit of knowledge into the courts, and one gentleman, we won't mention his name, but he tried to take on the police over an incident, and you could see that what was actually happening was a very simple offence in the beginning was becoming deeper and deeper and more of a problem for him, because he was trying to use knowledge that wasn't totally correct.
Because the big problem I can see right now, what you said, is there's no such thing as the police, the state, the government, the army. It's Bob, Susie, or Joe, who happens to be clothed under the color of law at that time, who acts as a officer of the government. You have to go after the man in Queen's Bench. You can't go after the police in Queen's Bench. You have to say, like Barry Rose, caused a trespass on land. And it was so funny, the judge kept saying, he tried to stop saying common law. He kept saying the officer was uninvited. He kept saying Barry trespassed on land. And he's like, I mean, the officer was uninvited. So that even the Judge Martin, really good man, Judge Greg and Judge Martin, beautiful guys. And I guarantee Bali and their family hated these two guys for the last year and a half. But once the judge realized, the magistrate realizes, we have the Queen present. We have a man present. We have our Creator present. We must respect them. They will. If you want to act like a person, then they get to control you.
Right.
But if you're above them, they realize you are above them. You're a man.
Right. My brain is right. So there's there's a couple of very good questions come up here. Sorry, let me just get focused on this. So this is in relation to a case where a newborn baby was taken away, and it says the judge in Paul's case. We don't need to know more about. The judge in Paul's case refused to answer the question: is the son property or? So when that question was asked in the case, the judge simply didn't want to answer.
He doesn't have to. It's not his case. It's CPS's case against the parents. The parents have to make a case against the CPS and file it through Queen's Bench. Once they file it through there, they have 21 days to answer the question, whose property is this? Will you not restore property? If you will not restore property, we are going to take this before Queen's Bench, and the Queen or the jury will decide whose property this is. They don't have to talk to you in their case. It's their case. Just like if it's my suitcase, and I want to pack my suit and my accoutrements or my exhibits in a certain way in my case, how dare you try to put your socks or your shoes in my case? This is my case. I'm going to present my case now. If you don't know to make your own case up before we go before the trial or before we go before the judge, that's your problem. Because you don't know the rules of court, that's your problem. Don't try to put your stuff in my case, and don't tell me, oh, explain why you put silver thread in that suit in your case. Tell me why. Explain. I don't have to explain nothing. This is my case. And they're not telling you the simple thing. Make your own damn case, and then we'll worry about it.
Right, so here's a question for you. Why would the judiciary want to run a parallel system where we're saying that it's inherently deceptive? We think we understand what happens when we go into court. You are saying overwhelmingly that we don't understand it. Why would these people want to deceive us over a matter of justice?
One, believe it or not, it'll bring you closer to understanding who and what you are as a man. The more, toil you go through, the better clarity you have of just what your purpose is and what you do. Like I said, when I first was going through this, my whole family went down to Alabama. We went to the United States District Court down there, and we talked to Department of Justice criminal prosecutor Sandy Callahan Jr., big man, lieutenant colonel. And I thought he was embarrassing me in front of my whole family, because we were trying this. Me and my wife had gotten 17 attorneys throughout the years. I had 9, she had 8. We were trying everything in the world to get a copy of the contract. We could never get it. So Sandy Callahan finally said to me, he looked at me, he said, when you learn how to be a man, you won't need any government assistance. You won't need my help. You won't need anybody's help. You'll know exactly what to do. And I thought he was insulting me. I was like, wait a second, I'm the oldest son. I take care of my folks' farm. What are you talking about? I got all these brothers and sisters. I'm like the man of the family. He says, you're not a man. I says, what? He says, you don't know the rules of court. You don't know how to act as a man in the public. Maybe you know how to take care of your family, but you don't know how to act like within this society. You don't know what it means to be a man. So I was furious at him for years. And then I finally became aware about 2.5 years ago, when I finally realized, I looked in all the law dictionaries I could find. I purposely moved next to a law university in Virginia. There is no definition of the word man in their legal dictionaries. The best definition I could find of the word man, it said an adult male. An adult male what? I said to myself, a snake, an adult male aardvark, a cricket, an adult male what? So I realized, this legal society can't define its creator. Just like I can't define your creator, you can't define mine. They can't define man. So when I confronted a lot of attorneys and law professors, I said, do you realize out of all these books, there's no mention of the word man? And
I think you
didn't
looked
even
at
realize it.
16 law dictionaries, was it, that you studied at one time?
Oh, how many? It's an unbelievable
16,
amount. I have a whole list of the ones I've done throughout the
Right.
years. But what I've realized is I had mountains of books, and when I finally realized what it was to be a man, I realized all these books I have with all these little sticky notes sticking out of the side of it were all worthless. So I boxed I had 2 stacks about 8 feet high, and I just boxed them all off. I said, I never need one of these books ever again. I know how to be a man. I know how to act as a man in common law. I got this. All this stuff is for their society because they're just representing something. I'm presenting the man, the creator, to the court. And that's it. I don't have to use any of their citations. I never use any of their codes. I never use any of their precedent. I never use any of their constitutions. Because if you try to use, like, say, I was telling you earlier about the Second Amendment, are you going to have Thomas Jefferson or James Madison come in open court and say, this is what the Second Amendment means? No, it's It's what they believed at that point in time. That's what their belief system was. My belief, now this is my day in the sun. I'm going to tell you what I believe is in best interest of me, not what they believed back in 1776.
Right. I got a lot of stuff going through my head. Next question for you. We see at the moment in UK that we've got a government that is desperately trying to strip away the rest of common law. We can see that. I may be using the wrong term, but we're watching the government try to effectively trick people into believing that statute law is the only law. And
Right.
of course, the next step I believe that we would see in this country, if we let it happen, is that statute law will then be merged with corpus juris, which is the European law, which is going into the French type jurisdiction.
Yeah, why don't
that
you
you've
flip
mentioned.
to that page right there?
Can we bring up that one, Mike, please? The one on the screen? That one.
No, next
Oh.
one. Keep going.
Oh, next. No, it's this one.
That one. That's
Okay,
the one.
right.
This is what I try to explain to people all over the place. I said, obviously, at one time, the whole entire planet basically was common law, or customs based on the people of the land. Now you can see how blue, you can say the color right there is blue. The blue symbolizes the civil law, the statute law, the Napoleonic Code worlds. So obviously, eventually in time, this whole world, that's why you got Sharia law then too. You can see the Islamic country with the Sharia law. But you can see how very few countries are basing it on the Sharia law and common law, and almost the whole entire planet now is under some sort of a code. And that's why I said
So, sorry, which colour is common law at the moment?
brown. Australia, India, you see that?
Oh, right, okay. Yeah,
America, and
Yeah.
the North American, well, except for Mexico.
right.
That's also a code world. But like I said, this is what I'm saying that was just happening. They are going to get a one world order sometime in the future. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's overwhelming unless people somehow realize that the government serves man, not man serves government, that man isn't a person within a government. We are self-governing. Like when the United States of America opened up for business again on October 17th, I should have put that slide on there. I think you forgot to put it on.
Well, we can bring it up now.
Well, no, I think you forgot what it was. Is Barack Obama, when he opened up the federal government again, he said, you folks have to realize, because they realized whatever they were trying to do by closing the federal government, I think they were hoping there'd be riots in the street, chaos, mayhem. Nobody cared. The American people, we could not care less. You know what? You close up Washington, we don't care. Go home. You want to try to do what? You have no impact on man. Do whatever you want. So they realized, oh, wow, this really hasn't any effect on man within the society, does it? No, we really don't care in the United States.
This to me is a really important thing, because the British Constitution Group, going back a couple of years, was beginning to realise that you could either stay trying to fight in the political system, you tried to get a party elected or an MP elected, or you simply, and I'm going to stick up for Roger Hayes on this one, because he was the man. He said, well, no, we should simply say to the MPs at the moment who are causing all the trouble, go away, go and play on your own. We don't need you.
We basically ignore them, right? We basically we don't give them any credence to their existence on planet Earth. So what's funny is, like I said, Barack Obama said when the government opened up for business, he says, you do realize the greatest gift our founders gave us was the right to self-govern. So self-governing, so when the government, somebody, like you said, somebody from the government does something to interfere with your right to self-govern, that's called terrorism. And all terrorism is the interference with the proper function of a government. So if I'm self-governing and you're standing in my way, you're interfering with my right to self-govern. I want to go from point A to point B. For some reason, you believe that you have some sort of authority or right to stand in front of me and interfere with me from going from point A to point B. Well, that's terrorism. That's interference with the proper function of a government, and I'm self-governing. So, you have monarchy governments, democratic governance, self-governance. You have all kinds of governance.
Right. UK column, we've been doing it for quite a while now. We've been pointing a finger at our government and members of the government, so David Cameron and we'll say William Hague in particular, since they're the ones pushing for the wars overseas. And we are saying that they are trying to label anybody who criticised the government as a potential terrorist, at least.
Yeah.
We see this happening more, but we've been pointing a finger back saying, no, the domestic terrorists in this country are the very people sat in Westminster, because they are now oppressing.
Well, like I said to
people.
folks too, a lot of times, the public servants, like I said, with like a Barack Obama, You know, I'm sure he's a lovely man. He'd probably be a great neighbor. I'm sure he's got a beautiful wife, good kids. I'm sure he has a dog. He'd collar it, chain it up, you know, make sure I don't poop on my lawn. He's a great man. But he's still my public servant. I don't care what my servants are doing as long as they don't interfere with my existence on this earth. They're my servants. They answer to me. I don't answer to him. So, but like I said, with people like my law dictionary, I wrote the word citizen, and citizen comes from the word civis, and civis is Latin for a member of a family. So now, if you want to be a citizen of the United States, obviously then that's Daddy Obama. And obviously you're going to be subordinate to him because you're a member of his family. Now, I owe a duty and allegiance to me, to the Lentz family. You know, then I could say then to God, and then I'll worry about the people, the country. But to me, my first duty is to my family. I'm a citizen of the Lentz family. So if I'm not a citizen of the United States, because I could only be, I only do it like owed one master. You know, that's my Lentz family. I owe a duty and obligation to them and them alone. If they don't require me to perform a service to them, then I'll worry about taking care of God. Then I'll worry about taking care of Barack Obama's family. But my family comes first. I'm a citizen to my family first.
Okay. Carl, just come up on screen there. Whereas Harry Brown has said, ask Carl again, how do we stop them doing away with common law? So this is somebody who's very worried at what we see is a massive attack at the moment to simply get rid of common law as though it's never existed. Like
I said again, thank God for telephony, thank God for telecommunications, thank God for this internet, or I wouldn't have met you today. Yay. You guys got to meet me too.
So we're doing it.
We're doing it.
By
we're
getting
doing
them
it right, and we're getting the word out, and I'm making it, like I say to people. People say to me all the time, Carl, how can you make any money at this? You're doing it 2-3 sentences. Attorneys do years and years of this nonsense, and they get tens of thousands of pounds or quid for doing what you're doing in 2 sentences. I said, right, there is no money to be made here. So that's why the Legal Society would give absolutely no benefit to teaching you folks what I'm teaching you. There's absolutely nothing for them to make in it. They'd go back to just taking care of corporations like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Fanta. They would go back to where they belong, dealing with the fictitious entities of the planet. They would not be able to engage in intercourse with man anymore. It's just we're tolerating it.
Right.
That's all it is you're tolerating. Oh, that's a great word I use all the time, too. Some poor man, he came up from London. And I said to them, I said, let me pretend I'm the judge. And I said to the man, I said, would you say that you're suffering because the policeman broke your arm, twisted your legs, bent you in a pretzel, and that he beat you in the head with a bat? He's like, yeah, I'm suffering because of that. I'd say, next case. And he said, what? I said, suffer. Do you know what the word suffer means? And he's like, he had this big old law dictionary. I said, look it up. And he flipped it open. He says, to permit or to allow. I said, right, did you allow him to do that? Did you have the capacity to stop him, but you chose not to stop him? Right, so when they say, oh, the poor suffering Irish, it's like, oh, well, they're tolerating it, they're permitting it, they're allowing it to happen. They had the ability to stop, but they chose not to. I said, do you understand the words that they're throwing out in the media to you, saying that you suffer or you're suffering? Do you realize that means to consent? Do you realize that means to permit? So do you realize they're making fools out of you people because you're getting this public school education, and they're saying, well, did you suffer by what the policeman did to you? Yes, I suffer badly. Next case. I said, that's how fast I could get rid of your case, if I wanted to get rid of your case that fast. Yeah. Because you just don't know simple words that they're using at you.
I can imagine there's a lot of people watching this and listening, and they're saying, how can it be that we got this parallel system? And what came into my mind was that we were contacted by a mother, I'm going to guess, probably a year ago. She'd had children taken away from her, but she was an amazing lady. She decided she needed to go and learn law to find out how they did this. So she signed on to do a law degree in England, which I think she did in Kent. And then she was so interested that she went across to the States and did one under the American bar. And she said, it still didn't explain to me what was really going on.
Right.
But the thing she said, and I've never forgotten it, is she said when she was doing the law degree in England, there was one of the tutors that kept saying something very strange to the students. He kept saying, have you seen the film The Matrix? So initially they said, well, no, not yet. And then he'd ask again, have you seen it? So eventually one of them challenged him and said, why are you so keen for us to watch The Matrix? And he said to them, well, it's important you realise that all is not as it seems. And she found that little incident stuck in her mind. It stuck in my mind. But now I'm beginning to think, well, here we are, we've got people going through law school where the people teaching are actually sucking people into this alternative system.
When you go to a legal school or law school like that, whatever you want to call it, it's a legal society, they are pulling you further away from your status as a man, from you being the creator to you becoming one of them, to you becoming within their society. Because when I took a bar exam just for a laugh, and there was like the very first part is 4 multiple choices. The first one is like banana. The other one is like Eskimo. That's ridiculous. Then the third answer is a common law answer. That'd be perfect in common law. The fourth answer would be the legalese answer. That's the perfect answer in legalese, which is 180 degrees commonly different than the common law.
Right.
And I just realized, I said, this is hysterical. If you do common law, you're going to fail. You're not going to be a member of the bar. But it is the correct answer in common law.
We've got many people now who, as lay persons, have got a lot of experience in court, and they are now seeing some even barrister level people starting to run away and research on the common law, and they're saying, we were never taught this.
That's right.
Yeah, so this is the truth beginning to do the job, coming up to the surface.
Because my friend who became a judge in the States, I don't know if you folks understand, how long do you think it takes for them to train them to be a judge? Do you have any idea?
Well, I'm going to answer that with a question. Do you know who appoints judges?
Here in the United States, they elect judges.
Right.
So my friend called me up one day and
idea.
He said, I won't be able to hang out with you this week and talk to you this week. He says, because I won the election. And I said, oh, that's right, you're going to be a judge. He's like, yeah, I got to go for 3 or 4 days to the state capitol, and they're going to teach me how to be a judge. 3 or 4 days. So you could be elected a judge, he could be elected for a judge. 3 or 4 days in the United States, they're going to say, you got all you need to know to be a judge. This is how simple it is to you folks. You guys don't understand. I could do in 3 or 4 days what they teach a judge to do in 3 or 4 days. Right. It's that simple.
But we describe, okay, we've got that. We're describing judges as a particularly bad old boy system. They're just appointing each other on a...
Oh, here in the UK?
Well, yeah.
Well, in the United States, there were, Joe Schmo like me could get elected to be a judge, and then we actually have to go to like some sort of... They bring us to the state capitol, and 3 or 4 days later, they give us the, hey, you're a judge. You need everything you need to know. Because being a judge is so beyond simple. It's just basically all built on contract.
Right. Do you want to get this one up? I'd like you to take us through this one.
Yeah, we can do that one real quick. I think we probably brought up the status of standing in court a little bit pretty quickly with the creator, like I was doing with the capstone. We couldn't figure out how to get rid of the capstone. So we just put that up there for quickie. But like I said, a man, like say the creator, say God was a creator, and he came down to planet Earth and he wanted to be, say, a frog. And he was getting stepped on by man forever and ever and ever. And after a while, he got tired of being stepped on by man. So he said, you know what, I'm going to go re-establish my position, and I'm going to go back to being God. But it was fun at the time, but now I'm coming back. What happens to a lot of folks, they're being dragged into other people's court cases as a defendant. So as you get tired of getting stepped on as a defendant, you can say, you know what, I'm tired of being a defendant. Like I said, with Bali's case, I left him as a defendant because I was going to flip the court anyway, and I was going to say, now we're going to be a man. So that's what I did in Bali's case. We flipped it from being a defendant to being a man. And the court judge realized that, and he realized Bali was evoking the common law rights of this land. That we have the right to act as a man at any time we wish. We got done acting as a defendant. We got tired of being stepped on. So guess what? We're going to flip it, and we're going to go back to the status of a man. And that's why people say, how did you flip it as a defendant? Because the judges are listening to certain key words that you're uttering. And only man can use those certain words. Lawyers and barristers can't.
Okay. We got 10 minutes, so let's just run through, because you selected these, so and it's good to get a bit. This is we're in a classroom here now, so we're putting up some stuff. There was a movie that you brought up. The movie you brought up, Matrix, was good. And a better one is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. All man is liable for his debt, and I hate this nonsense about banks don't money. I'm tired of it. If you owe a debt, pay your debt. If it's causing you harm to pay for your debt, fine. Make it in what you believe in your best endeavors, in your good faith. This is what the best you could do at this period of time. Like I said, my mom worked for the IRS. If you know the IRS, they're only open from business basically from January until the summertime, fall. So she couldn't pay the mortgage, say, September, October, November, December. So she would just write a simple letter saying the best I could do on my mortgage is $50 a month until I get back on my feet in January. Please accept this $50. And they would. Because my son was born, we opened up a bank account for my son, and the bank manager came out and said to my mom, I've never seen such a high credit score in my life. How did you do this?
And she said, because I know how to write a sentence. I know how to write a letter
Right.
to my creditors.
Sorry, Carl. What you're telling us now, is that a lead into that side?
Absolutely, absolutely. So what I'm trying to say is
Right.
that Who Framed Roger Rabbit is the second dimension engaged in intercoursing with the third dimension. So you want to build up a good rapport with the second dimension. So you don't want to destroy your credit rating, because someday, eventually, you guys are all afraid they're going to go with these plastic cards. So if you destroy your birth certificates, you destroy any connection to the second dimension, how are you going to buy groceries at your local store? You be agrarian and go live out in the woods? Okay, go out and live in the woods. But we have to, this is the legal society and the law world of man. We have to intercourse, and we have to try to find a happy balance. So that's what the second dimension is right there. When all you folks walk into these courts all the time, says, or anybody tries to say, "Oh, this paper is certified." Okay, certified means nothing. Oh, this is just a piece of paper that's certified. That's the second dimension. So to support the second dimension has to be uttered by a man. This piece of paper has to be backed up by a man in open court. Somebody has to read out this.
Yeah, otherwise
piece
the
of paper.
words don't do anything. They
It has to
sit
be
there.
liable to be true. Until then, it's just a piece of paper with a nice fancy English seal on it. Oh, lovely. Look, lions, tigers, dragons, oh my, wonderful seal. Who cares? Who said this is true? Who's going to make the claim that this is true? Because you're going to be liable for it. Everything on this piece of paper is going to be true. So when I say to folks, you said, just because you have a contract as a piece of paper, they say, well, the bank didn't sign the piece of paper, and no bank signed the contract. It's like, great, lovely. So it's like I said, so with the words, nobody paid, great. But by your actions, did you pay $1 on that mortgage? Yes. So then you believed it was true at one time, that you owed a debt, right? So by your actions spoke louder than your words or whatever's written on a silly piece of paper. So this is what a judge is looking for. He's saying, okay, great. Like Bali, I wrote a nice little simple thing for him. He put it into the court. Judge was like, lovely, wonderful. Now he wanted to hear Bali's words, back up this one little statement. Great. Now he had to watch Bali's actions in court. Was Bali acting like a man? Or was he acting like a little Nancy boy running around in a circle, crying and whining and starting little hissy fits? Bali was able to keep cool and just present his case like a man would. So that's the whole thing. It's your demeanor. It's your actions speak louder than your words. So that's what the judge is looking for. Because if you guys think you're going to use these little silly tricks that I give you folks, these little silly templates that you guys are doing, the judge is there, to me, the judge is there to protect the second dimension, because we need a second dimension. We need a paper currency. We need some sort of second dimension. And we also have to operate in the third dimension with our fellow man. The big thing that the judge does is he test you, even if Bali said everything exactly the way I said, but if the judge saw by Bali's demeanor, it's like, no, he's not a good man. He's not an honorable man. I could tell he's trying to get over on the second dimension. I'm going to protect the second dimension from somebody like Bali. So see, that's what I'm saying. To me, the man in the black robe, he's got that duty to say, protect both sides.
Right. Okay, we've got another one here, which is orders. Never underestimate the power of a pawn. That's a relation to...
This is funny what you folks are saying all the time.
To a chess pawn there, yeah.
Right, this is a chess piece, and then obviously they have people in the community who are into this who are black, white, brown. So it's made the pawn multicolor, so that's pretty cool. And then either is that the pawn on seventh row going to turn into a king or queen, whatever he wishes to be, or is he protecting the queen?
Just hold it round a bit for the camera. There we are.
Okay.
So we've got a checkered pawn, which is representing everybody in society. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So the lowly piece on the chessboard.
Basically,
but
when you play chess with me, and if anybody ever hears this, I will always beat you with the pawn. I will let every other piece on the board fall before the pawn, because I love beating you with a pawn. It is so much fun, because it feels so good that you beat them with the pawn. But what I said is everybody, I've realized these freemen people all have fee schedules. So it's like, oh, good. I don't have to teach you folks fee schedules. Good. Now there's something called an invoice. When somebody gives you an order.
So we bring that one back up, Mike, if you will. Thank you.
Yeah, so when somebody's giving you an order, they're giving it to you in voice. Just like if you went to a waitress at a restaurant, she'd just say, okay, you want to order what? Eggs, bacon, da-da-da, sausage, da-da-da. And she'd be putting down how much you owe, da-da-da-da-da. So some man in Texas, Jimmy Lynn, he actually tested this out. He got stopped by a Texas Ranger. And he said to the Texas Ranger, whenever a Texas Ranger pulled him over, he said, driver's license registration. And Jimmy said, is that an order? The Ranger said, absolutely. He gave him his driver's license. The Ranger said, get out of your vehicle. He says, is that an order? He said, absolutely. He got out his vehicle. He said, step to the back of the van. Is that an order? Absolutely. Then he said, put your hands on my vehicle because I'm going to search your vehicle now. He said, is that an order? He says, absolutely. He said, he just started laughing. And the officer said, what's so funny? He says, I'm so jacked up on call, listen to call law. He said, call who? He's like, some guy does a law show. He said, but this is exactly what he said you were going to do. You're just carrying out your duty. You're just following orders. It's nothing personal with you and me, Mr. Officer, is it? He's like, no, I'm just doing my job. He said, that's right, you're just carrying out orders. And you were ordered to get into the squad car by the shift commander, and the shift commander was ordered to put you in that car by the sergeant. The sergeant got his orders from the captain, who got the orders from the commissioner. Yeah. So everybody's just following orders. Have I not followed all the orders to date? I'm like, yes, good. So when you're done giving me orders, I'm going to demand fair and just compensation. What? He says, because when you fill out your invoice at the end of the week, for all hours you put in, and you carried out your orders, aren't you going to demand fair and just compensation for carrying out orders all week? And he said, the officer just looked at him and says, get out of here, you're making me nervous. And Jimmy left. I said, no, Jimmy, you should have said, is that an order for me to get out of here for fair and just? He said, he said, I missed that. The cop would have just dropped it and said, please, sir, leave me alone. So like I said, the officers realized that they all know they're just carrying out orders. They say, oh, no, just your order, just carrying out orders, nothing personal. So when somebody says to you, give me your name, because the only thing you have in this world is your good word and your name. So when you give something so freely, like say a woman who just gives her body away freely, you don't have much value of your name or your word. No, it's very valuable. Don't just give it away. Make the person taking it from you earn it. So when I say, well, give me your name, well, firstly, give me yours. You want fair and just compensation. If I give me yours, give me mine. I'll be more than glad to. And I would say to people, never use the word no. No is a word of controversy. If you talk to any attorney, attorneys will tell you, look, 99% of what we do is we negotiate settlements. That's all we do. Like some lawyers in Virginia said to my sister, what your brother does as a performer on stage, he goes into open court, and not only does he know the law and know how to negotiate settlements, but he knows actually to get up there and perform. Yeah. So we don't know how to perform. We're great negotiators. That's what we're taught at law school. We're not taught how to be a trial attorney, how to go up there and tap dance and win a jury over, like American Idol or British Got Talent. We don't know how to do that. It's a special skill that your brother has.
Okay, we got 2 minutes. So one of the things is that you included this slide.
I put that in.
What's the significance of this?
That's to settle the matters on a private side with whoever you believes owes you a debt, because you're not going to want to bring it into an open court and never have the judge decide, because neither one of you might like what the judge is going to do to you with bringing a controversy into the public. And this one is just a little snippet I have from Tomlin's Law Dictionary from 1835, and I was explaining to you earlier. If it was once in law and it's not been outlawed, it's still good law. It's still true law. So all that basically is saying is what a court of record is, that the King's Bench is a court of record. And all court of record meant was, is it worth, because paper and pen was expensive back then, is it worth writing down the proceedings of the court? Should we make this a court of record? Was it worth more than 20 shillings? And they would actually keep a record of it. If it's not worth writing it down on paper and pen, it's called a not of record. That's all it is. That's all called not of record, not of it. But a court of record, if you look at a court of record only moves under common law. Only. So a court of record. So King's Bench, Queen's Bench is a court of record. And it only moves under the common law, not statutes.
Okay.
So the big thing at the last slide you saw, it says all access to the Queen's Bench or King's Bench is free to the people. So if they try to give you a filing fee, that's the blue one.
This one?
Yeah, it's written in blue. The free use of all courts of...
Sorry, that one you're looking at, are you?
No, this one right here. The free use of all courts of record is to be granted to the people. That's how I got in the door the other day when it was closed after hours.
Right.
This is the court of record, right? Yes. Okay. Do I have free access to it? Open that door.
Cool. We got to the end of the time that we can give. It's been fascinating. Obviously, I was unfortunately you were feeling a bit poorly last night, but I had the opportunity to talk to Bali and his brother, which was fantastic.
Was it fun?
It was great. It was great fun. This has been phenomenal because we've seen the full spectrum. We've seen free men come unstuck. We've seen some of the things starting to work. We know people are learning. Can we say to you, we'd like to do some more with you, which we'll have to probably do Skype.
Yeah, I just wanted to meet you first. See, if anybody wants to meet me and talk to me, it's hard to trust people over the telephone.
Yeah.
So you want to, test the mettle of the man. You want to see if he's for real and genuine. And you definitely seem real and genuine to me. So that's why I have to meet people first before I'll engage with them. I won't
Right.
do it any other way. That's why I'm here in England. Why wouldn't I just help them on the
Okay,
phone?
well, we will
From now,
definitely
Skype.
do some more on Skype, and
fine.
we're also going to introduce some of the things that Roger Hayes and Guy Taylor you met, didn't
Yeah,
you?
he's
the other-
crazy. I like him.
Okay, so there we are. We're starting to take the lid off what the courts are about. We'll just give you Carl's contact details here. So broadmind.org is the one you want to go to, which
That's
is
the US.
the US site. And then you've got ukcommonlaw.co.uk, which is the new UK website. And you've got an email. So freeze the slide if you want to get those details off.
Yeah, and the other email, the new email site is going to be uncommonlaw at gmail.com. So
Okay.
we made a new one. That's the American one, the email one.
Right.
Uncommonlaw at gmail.com is for the UK folks.
Okay, well, I had a quick look on Google and it's pretty easy to track you down.
Oh, good,
and
good.
now they've seen your face,
Yeah.
and they've seen.
Now they got my face.
Now they've got your face, so we know who you are. So I'm going to say thank you very
All right, thanks a
much
lot,
for
Roy.
coming all this way.
Thank you, Brian.
And the answer is now presenting itself, isn't it? Exposure, which the UK column keeps banging on about. Exposure is 95% of the weapon to deal with these people. There are many good people out there. There are some good politicians, not many. There are many, many good policemen and women, and we now know there are some good judges as well. So we need to support these people and encourage them, not attack them. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.